Hey, and welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. I'm your host, Jess Dewell of Red Direction. Today, I cannot wait to introduce you to our panelists. Not only are they amazing women, they are also very accomplished women, and I'm going to introduce them right now. First is Johanna Walker, who is the fear-blasting storytelling maven for entrepreneurs and people with a mission. She's also known as a public speaking coach, and I have to admit she's really good at what she does. I have seen her in action. She's the founder and CEO of Get Real Public Speaking and helps coaches, consultants, and passionate change makers put their powerful stories to work and to be from the heart, to have a voice that stands out front so they can make the impact that they want, reach the clients that they're meant to serve, and to change the world in big ways. I know Johanna from around town. She's in Boulder, as am I. And we actually crossed paths at a conference recently. And not only were we found out we were going to cross paths at the conference, we ended up being in a power circle together where we got to spend time and really get to know each other. And it was a very moving experience. I've actually never had an experience like that. And so I can't wait to tell you something about that in just a few minutes. Okay, next with us is Nora Richardson, and she is the brand strategist. Oh, let me just start that over, everybody. Nora Richardson is joining us, and she is the brand strategist that will dig deep into to get the essence of your company. The branding that she does pairs methodical and practical marketing strategies together, and she combines that with clear-cut and easily recognizable designs for accelerated business growth and strength in positioning. And I know Nora from several years ago. We have some common acquaintances, and she actually was part of a 4-day online summit that I did. And I am so glad to get to spend some more time with her because it has been too long. All right. I have to admit, everybody, before we get started, I'm going to ask them a question, and this is going to be a panel discussion, just like you're used to when we have panels on the Voice of Bold Business Radio. But before we do that, I have to share a couple of things. First, Nora is still involved. You're involved in branding, Nora, and I've been watching you over the years, and I keep going, man, everything you're doing is really awesome. Man, this is so exciting. What's the coolest thing that you have going on right now?
What's the coolest thing I've got going on right now? Oh, I am working with some amazing individuals that are really getting clear on their story and how that actually translates and communicates to their audience in such an amazing ways these days. So, I mean, there's some fantastic things. I'm working on my own a podcast, getting that together as well. So I am doing all kinds of things, traveling all over, been speaking all over this nation, and going to be speaking in Europe via Zoom kind of thing, so virtual. So
that's fantastic. So still a lot of the same things. I mean, the last time we actually spent time in a room together, it was for the You've Got This online summit.
That's right.
So it's great to hear that you are just charging down that path. All right. So everybody, when Johanna and we were at this conference, it's called Emerging Women Live. One of the things that happened there that I'm actually really proud of is I created a drink with a bartender one night, and and it was actually really good. And I've since made it here at my house for my husband, and I can't wait to make it for my father-in-law, both of whom really like bourbon as much as I do. So that's kind of a fun thing. But even beyond that, which Johanna can tell you what she thought of the drink because she did try it. We know each other because she is a speaking coach, and we run in the same circles here in town. And what I really appreciate about Johanna as I'm getting to know her is the sincerity that she brings and how she chooses to use words to get her point across. And she's here today. So what's new and great and exciting going on in your world today, Johanna?
Well, what I'm working on right now, filling a program that is starting in mid-November. It's a mastermind for speakers, for women. It's called Women Who Speak, and it kicks off with a retreat where we dive deep into your message and the heart of what you want to say. And then the participants actually deliver their talks, and then we get the talks booked and out there in the world. So the whole program goes from inception to being in the world speaking. And I'm filling that program right now, and so excited about the women that I'm gathering together, and so excited to kick off in about a month.
Great. Oh my gosh. Okay. So as we get started, everybody watching, and everybody listening, the title of this program is What We Mean, Not What We Say. And in true fashion of our panels, I'm going to ask both Johanna and Nora a question, and they get 2 uninterrupted minutes to tell us their answer. And from that, we will dive deep. We will use that as fodder for the rest of the conversation so we can get the most out of their experience, their expertise, and their passion that they can give us in this little bit of time that we have together. So, Johanna, I want to know, what can we do to ensure we convey what we mean with the words we use to say it?
Great question, Jess. I'm excited to be here. So, the first thought I have is, in order to ensure we say what we mean, we have to be willing to say what we don't mean, and willing to sometimes mess up, to sometimes get it wrong, to, so be willing to take the risk of saying what you don't mean in service of clarifying and figuring out what you do mean. That I find a lot of people like, I'm going to hang back here in the back of the room until I figure it out exactly 100% perfectly, and then I'll speak. And we have to speak and mess up and then go back and tweak and stay in conversation with our audiences and stay in conversation with the people we're talking to keep that alive. And and sometimes the correction is more powerful than initially what you say first, when you actually show up and say, wait a minute, that's not exactly what I meant. And then the second thing is really about showing up fully in the room. And that what gets communicated so much more than your words is your presence, that you're in the room with your body and your heart and your voice and your breath, and that what you say is not separate from all of those things, that your body, your heart, your voice, your breath, your message are all connected. That so many of us speak from up here, you know, and your presence doesn't get communicated in the same way that when you're really speaking with your whole body. So those are the 2 pieces I want to touch on. Do I still have more 2 minutes?
Well, you can totally take more time if you have more to say, but this is perfect. I thought it was very.
I've got more to say, but we'll get to it.
That's kind of cool. I like it. Okay, but you have to tell everybody. Did you like the drink I created?
Of course, I loved it. It was like a little bit tangy, not too sweet, refreshing and cool.
So for those of you watching and listening, it's bourbon and it's muddled blueberry. Nope, not blueberries, blackberries with a little bit of blackberry liqueur if you have it. If not, a tiny bit of sugar, like simple sugar water, and it's topped with champagne. That it's called, and we named it. Somebody else in our power circle named it the Just Jess. So there you have it. Okay, now that we got that out of the way. All right, Nora, I got to know from you, and I can't wait until we see each other in person, because you're going to have to try this drink. It's that good.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. I love blackberries.
Do you?
So, I do. I love blackberries.
It's the perfect time for them. Also, they're in season. They're just everywhere right now. All right, Nora, I want to know, what can we do to ensure we convey what we mean with the words that we use to say it?
Well, it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about person to person, it's a slightly different thing than from branding. When you are doing a business or going out in a different kind of branding perspective. The key to speaking as a brand, a personal brand or a company, is having one message and having that one message that resonates with an audience, and then consistently iterate or reiterate that message everywhere and everything. But most companies and most people struggle with getting that one message, and how you do, get that, oh my gosh, amazing one message. And where that is created is when you're actively developing your branding. Now, so many people get branding as only a logo, and actually that is far from the truth. It is actually getting to know a little bit more about you, about your company, about your why, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and basically essentially getting that story. That story is a huge part of your messaging. Knowing the three items, your story, your why, and your audience, is how you can formulate that one message, and getting it everywhere. So the question that your stories needs to answer is, what do you include? Or what you include is your credibility, what you do, what you stand for, and whom you stand for. So that's what kind of encompasses that whole story aspect, those three questions. Let me reiterate those, because I don't think I said that right. What you do, which includes your credibility, what you stand for, and for whom. So once you get those types of things rolling and cohesive and strong, that's when you can actually get your messaging, so that you can get that one message out there.
Oh boy. Yeah. It's really funny because both of you I'm sure you agree on that point of a single message. I want to know how many people actually know what their one message is when they seek you out for branding or to figure out how to share their story with the world.
Are you asking me?
I am. I'm asking you both.
Oh, well, it depends on whether you're like Coca-Cola. Of course, like Coca-Cola and these major brands, they definitely do know that one message. And, they are able to, project that one message. But for a small business owner or a medium-sized business owner, I'm going to tell you that in that beginning, that startup phase, your one message can't even be developed. Because you are too busy trying to figure out what the heck you're doing and why you're doing it. So you're trying to figure out what actually resonates, what lands, and then you can cultivate that one message from that. So where I see is people start really kind of narrowing in on what they're saying, how they're saying it, what's being actually heard in about the year, in like a 1 year basis. That's when branding should really be able to be cultivated and developed in an effective way. So 1 year in business, you should usually be able to get that kind of rolling, because you should know what you're doing and who you're talking to by that point.
Yeah, I would say, to answer your question, very few people know that one message, and it's a hard thing for a lot of people to get to that place. And that's really, one of the things I started off saying is be willing to put a stake in the ground. Put a stake in the ground, take a step forward, get information, see what lands, see what resonates, and then you can always move the stake. But it's important to be able to take a risk. For me, I'm working with speakers, so every time you speak, you get to get information from the audience, get information from your own inner feedback, and see what lands, and then tweak it. And so in that first year of being out there speaking, you may not have that one thing crystal clear and everything all in alignment, but you still get to speak and tell your story and connect. And then the more you speak and the more information you get, that's how you kind of hone in on, what is it that I have to say, and what is my one thing. I call it your genie gem. You're the one thing you want people to walk away remembering about you.
What was that? What would you say? Gem? Something gem? What was it?
Your genie gem.
Oh, genie gem. Thank you.
Your little gem of genius.
Okay, got that.
After your talk, 2 weeks, 6 months, a year down the road, people remember the one thing they heard in your talk. That's your genie gem.
Okay, I'm trying really hard not to turn this into a personal coaching session. Because I knew this. I knew that would be a danger when I brought you guys on, because now my brain is turning and I'm like, I know everybody who's going to be listening will have some of these same questions. I like the fact that, Johanna, you're saying just go talk to people. And Nora, you're saying you might not really know what your brand is yet. Okay. And that's okay. And that one can happen without the other, because things develop and the people that we attract and what we think we're going to do might not actually end up being what we do, for lack of a better way to say it. And this makes me think, this concept of being able to move the stake, like you said, Johanna, when we think about that, and most people think they have to get it right the first time. And you actually talked a lot about giving grace and being able to go back and clarify and say, yeah, that's not really what I meant. And now that I've said it, I know I didn't mean that. So for both of you, I'm very interested in what is a way, and this may not apply to the brand, like a company brand side of things, but it could to a personal brand. So you will tell me, Nora. I'm wondering about this in the sense that, how do we learn, or what steps can we take to give ourselves that grace to say, I'm moving my stake, or, I was not clear before. Let me try again.
So me first or
Wait,
Johanna?
go for it.
Sorry, my ear thing's coming out. So basically, to help you to really get to that point is you have to, one, be comfortable with what you're doing and how you're doing it. You have to feel comfortable with your knowledge and stand in that. The second thing is like Johanna said, you have to kind of just put it out there and see what actually sticks. The third thing is to have help. Get help. Find someone who actually is either in a current field that you need to get strength in, as a mentor, or actually getting someone like myself as a brand strategist to really kind of help you kind of think through the bigger picture of what you're trying to do. You have to have a goal in mind. You have to kind of figure out what you're trying to do for the bigger picture, if it's a legacy, or what big kind of outcome or statement or mission you're trying to achieve. Lots of people these days are really looking at movements. And so that's the kind of thing that you need to know from the start. What are you trying to achieve eventually? And then find people to help you kind of guide you in that role of getting to where you want to be. It's more than just about communication. It's about what you actually are doing in the bigger picture, what you're meaning, the words that you use. Like you said, it's about the meaning of the whole purpose of what you're doing at a much bigger place. Does that make sense? I don't know.
It does.
Okay.
What would you add to that, Johanna?
Well, I would add a couple things. One is, someone told me once, being a business owner is really just a series of making decisions and making a lot of decisions, and you're constantly making decisions, and you just have to decide. And that can be really uncomfortable. Putting the stake in the ground can be really uncomfortable, and then moving the stake can be really uncomfortable. So one, it's deciding, and two, it's being willing to be uncomfortable. And I'm always, because I'm working with speakers, and for a lot of people, that's an edge for people to put out your voice and to claim the stage and claim your authority. That's an edge for people. And the more we walk to the edge and step in out of our comfort zone and get uncomfortable, then the bigger we grow. and we get to expand. So that happens, I think, is true for making decisions, putting the stake in the ground, moving the stake can be very uncomfortable, and we have to be willing to be uncomfortable in order to move forward, in order to take that action.
Oh, you're
And I
speaking
think
my
this
language.
also, say that again.
You're speaking my language.
And also, as Nora said, like being clear
Yeah,
about your goal. I'm
that's
always,
right.
I always talk about, here's the talk that you're giving doesn't live in a vacuum, but it's in the context of your business and your life. And so where do you want to end up in your business, and where do you want your listener to end up? And so it's really thinking strategically backwards, being really clear about that goal, and then building your talk strategically. So as the process unfolds, you might get clear about your goal, and then, oh, here's my message, no, it's this, and then, oh, here's my call to action. So it's kind of a circular process, and each thing informs the next as you go. So it's being willing to kind of hold all those balls in the air.
So you're both talking about momentum of some kind, whether it's getting momentum to figure out, the who and the what and the reasons, or to create the momentum personally that's like, yes, it reiterates, of course this is my mission, of course this is my personal mission, of course this is what I can give to the world, and this is how I can serve them, or how my company can come together and do greater good. And I love the language that you're using. So everybody that's listening, they're being very specific in their language. Both Nora and Johanna are. They're talking about painting this picture. And I want you to see that, because when we are communicating, the more that we can paint a picture, the better chance we have of creating a shared meaning from the get-go that we can work from. And when we do that, it also means miscommunications, or when we're not on the same page, show up a little quicker through other people's presence and their reactions, or comments, or feedback about an experience they had interacting with a company. So I'm thinking about this, and we're talking about this big long-term vision. Very few of us actually live in that realm where we go to that big long-term vision. I happen to be, and I say very few of us because I happen to be one of those people who go, oh yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be when I get there. But for me, how do I get there? Do I make a list, and do I follow the list? No, that won't work for me, nor will it work for my team, because I won't do anything if there's a list. And then there's the people that are like, and then there are the people that are like, oh, and this is me, by the way, too. I got to take some action. Every step I take is going to inform, am I getting closer to that or farther away from that vision? And being able to say, it doesn't matter if you're uncomfortable with the vision. It matters that we're either checking things off a list to get to goals, or we're taking action to figure out what our goals should be that actually really matter, because both give us experience. What would your response to that be?
Say that again. What respond?
I don't
Respond.
know. What would you add to what I just said? How about that? Or do I just need to talk more? Because sometimes I just need to do that. Okay, I will do this. I'll take a turn. So with that, the approach that we take, every single person is different. How they achieve their goals is different, and it all has to come with some sort of a shared meaning. Shared meaning that for example, and we'll use just a person has this idea that they want to go talk about, or a company that they want to build to do this thing. No real mission or understanding can occur until talking begins, right? Because we can't live in a vacuum. Ideas cannot live in a vacuum. So we don't even know. So if I had to take one step and one change about taking this idea that I have, whether it's within an organization that I'd like to see change in, whether it's going out on my own and doing something, whether it's being able to broach a conversation that I need to have in my personal life, right? It doesn't matter. What is the one thing? Here we go. Here's the question. What is the one thing that we can do when we are thinking about the communication that we want to have to make sure we get off on the right foot?
Mhm.
A start.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because it depends on where you're headed. But I think one of the first things, and this is again really important in all the work that I do with people, is really starting from here. starting from here and connected here being my body, my heart, myself, knowing what I want and being connected to myself, and by that I mean I always talk about your breath and your body and your voice and your heart. An image I share a lot is of a crying baby. Is have you ever watched a baby cry, like really wail? That baby is just like her back is arched and her chest is open and her lungs, her belly is expanding full with breath and her mouth is wide and her voice is clear. That baby is speaking the truth. She is not confused about what she wants, and everything is connected, her voice, her breath, her body, her heart, everything is connected. And it's sort of reconnecting, I think, for all of us to reconnect to that place of full connection in expression, that when I'm expressing myself, when I'm speaking, everything is online. I'm not leaving, it's not like half of myself is smoking crack in the neighbor's backyard and I'm over here just like doing what I'm supposed to do. It's really bringing everything into the room, and from that place anything is possible. Every step you take from that place is going to be in alignment with who you are and what you want. It's really starting from that place of authentic connection with yourself.
Mm-hmm. What would you add, Nora?
Well, I have to agree, but I would call that in my world is story. You really got to know your story. You need to know what exactly all of what she just said and be able to use the words to connect with an audience. And that is the key to a brand story. You need to know about your struggles. You need to know why your struggles are actually in alignment with the audience that you are going for. Or how I like to look at it is we have to tell your story. You have to really understand the values of a company or the branding, the brand, um, and the story and all that. And then you position yourself to the right audience. You don't, so many companies say, I wanted to target that audience. And then they try to change their story to match that audience. That's inauthentic marketing or inauthentic branding. It's actually the company has to explore and fully divulge their story first. Then they match that story with their audience or an audience that will totally get them and say, oh my gosh, they understand me.
So we're talking about playing all in.
All in.
All in.
All in.
Both of you are talking about that, this all in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I get this from an individual. So, because that's easy, right? We've got a person, we can figure this out. We know what we stand for. We know what our truth is in this moment. And when we speak our truth, other stuff will become clear to us: who we need to talk to, what we need to say, the struggles that really matter to get us there, to make sure that we're making the connection we want. And then there's this other part that goes, so we're talking about this, and whether it's a single person to an audience or it's an executive that's leading an organization of many people, we have to walk the walk. I hear you saying that. We still also must create this shared meaning with our constituents, the people that work with us and choose to come to work every day, and the people in our audience that chose to come see us and hear what we have to say. And so when we're thinking about that and we're adding a perspective of these other people, and how do I relate to these other people? When it comes to communication and words we use, like I could say any word in the English dictionary and it's going to mean something to me from the experiences that I've had. And it will mean something to each of you because of the experiences that you have. So when you don't have regular communication with yourself to the audience, how do you get that perspective of, am I on track? And do I have this common place and some sort of shared meaning to build from?
I think you learn I think, when I'm on stage speaking, I can tell when the audience is with me and I can tell when they're not. And so being able to be fluid enough in that moment, like I have my talk, I have my plan, I have my message, I have my mission, I have this idea of where I want to bring the audience. And that's engineering, I have engineered my talk to take them where I want them to go. But the flip side of that is mystery and intuition. And we have no idea when you get out there and speak, you have no idea what's going to happen and how it's going to land and the ripple effects it's going to have and how it's going to touch the people in the audience. So it's being able to hold both of those ends. Like, yeah, I've got a plan. I know what I want. I know where I'm heading. I've done my homework. And I'm going to surrender also to being present in the moment. So it's in the moment being able to read the audience, whether it's an audience of 1 or 50 or 1,000, being able to read the audience. And there's always a give and take. There's always a give and take. So I have enough fluidity that I can show up in the moment with my plan and be fully present with who's in the room, fully present with who's in the room and being able to read what's going on and change direction at any point in order to meet them, not to go off my course, but in order to, find the meeting place. Or not to, as you said, Nora, like, oh, I got to change myself. I got to become a different person to meet to meet my audience, but how do I walk that path that is really true, staying true to myself? And it's about the communication. It's about the transmission. It's about the connection. So staying alive and awake with that connection.
You are listening to the voice of Bold Business Radio. This is program 96, What We Mean, Not What We Say. And I want to jump into this but before I do, I need to tell everybody our hashtag is hashtag VBB Radio. So as you're out there, I see Eva's got some things that are coming up around the Voice of Bold Business Radio's hashtag. And we want to hear what you have to say. Ask us a question. Make sure you engage because Nora and Johanna are here. And let's use the knowledge that they have when we have them at our fingertips right here, right now. Nora, is there anything that you want to add to what Johanna was just saying?
Well, I think that what I heard her say was, there's the communicator, but there's also the receiver, and that we are both we are one of either one of those people in a communication. So either I am communicating information or I'm receiving information. And both jobs we have to be able to do well. There's a purpose, there's a goal to the communicator, and to get something that is believable and trustworthy, it's not just about the words we say, it's about the tone, how we're actually saying it, which is voice, the body language that we are giving, put forth, the proximity of the person, as well as the inflection, how we're doing stuff. So those are all things that someone who is talking needs to be very good at delivering. But you're also trying to make sure that you're, as a receiver, that you're understanding all of the body language as well. So you're interpreting that body language that the speaker is giving or the communicator is giving, and you've got to actually be open-minded and in the moment, as Johanna has said, not actually thinking about your responses and what you're trying to say, but actively listening and trying to understand where they're coming from and asking clarification in the when you're able to communicate. So we both have to be both of these things, a communicator and a receiver. Most of us are good at one and not both. So that's the problem. That's a really big problem. And we have to train ourselves to actually watch for things, feel for things, as well as listen for things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're talking a lot about practice. and practice and practice. And what I think we forget when we go about our lives is that we're practicing every day. We're practicing our life when we go about our life. We're practicing our job when we're at our job. There's always something to learn, provided we choose to see it and incorporate it. And I also hear you guys talking about just this practice of presenting and this practice and when let's see where do I want to take this, because I want to talk about the importance of that. It's almost like working out. When we don't work out, it takes us a while and we get winded and we might not be able to do as much as we want. When we stick with it, not only do we get faster and stronger, we're able to be more agile. And that's just one example. The same is true for any skill that we choose to use on a daily basis and make a priority in our consciousness, something that we touch. So what do you guys do to practice when you have a message, when in preparation for the show, if you wanted to use that as an example? What is your style and how much time do you spend now, and maybe it might have been different when you first started, so that somebody who's listening to us has a really good sense of, all right, I get what they're saying and now I know what it takes.
Mm. Yeah, I have two thoughts about that, because there are different kinds of practice. One is I'm giving a talk and I'm going to practice giving my talk. And I so much, practice enough that when I show up in the room, I can let go of my practice and be fully present. But when I practice on my feet, in my body, speaking, so that I'm not, I haven't it's not like I write my talk and then memorize it, but I'm always speaking it. I'm always on my feet, walking, moving through the space, saying the words out loud. So I feel the words alive in my body. Sometimes I ride my bike a lot. So I'm on my bike, I practice my talk. I also do a lot of singing and voice warming up so that my voice is really awake and alive. So that for me is like how to prepare for giving a talk. That's some of what I do. But then there's the other kind of practice, which is really about living and how to stay present and keep reaching and out of habit, but in that zone of discomfort where I'm outside of my comfort zone. This thing happened. I'm going to tell you just a quick story. I was at my sister's house in Denver last week. Actually, after the conference, I stayed with my sister in Denver. So I didn't see them all weekend, but I was staying at their house. And when I left, my sister was heading out the door. My nephew, my 12-year-old nephew, was going to be home alone. And I was ready to head back to Boulder, but he was going to be home alone. And I was like, I'll stay and hang out with you. And I was so excited to get to play with him. And we had fun for 2 hours playing soccer. And then when his dad came home a couple hours later, he said to me, I thought you'd be gone by now. And I said, yeah, me too. But Hunter roped me into playing soccer. And that was kind of a habitual response. After I left, I was like, no, that's not what happened at all. I stayed because I was so excited to get to play with Hunter. And so a few days later, I called him up and I told him, I said, Hunter, I just want to tell you that's not what I meant. What I meant was I was so excited to get to spend the time with you. And in the correction, it made a big difference to him. He heard it, it landed, it mattered. So sometimes, like in putting the stake in the ground, sometimes repeating or repairing it is more powerful in the end. But it's also practicing. I feel like that's part of the practice, is just being present, being aware, notice when I'm in habit and what I need to do to actually get present in the moment and out of habit. And so it's an awareness practice. I'll stop there.
What do you think, Nora?
Reiterate the question, please.
It was something about practice. I don't remember now. About the importance of practice and being able to know how much time it actually takes to start getting a level of comfort, or to be quicker at it, right? When we start something, we take a long time. When we're not, once we're practiced, we are prepared. We can, like what Johanna was saying, we could let go even.
Well, I think it takes as long as it takes.
I love to hear you say that because people are like, "I need this to take 5 minutes or less." And I'm like,
No, I think it takes as long as it takes. You don't become the expert, yesterday. It just doesn't happen. You actually have to have experience. You have to, have interest. You have to uh, have knowledge. There's just so much that it takes. You've got to do research is the biggest thing. And however long it takes you to get that is how long it takes. Not everybody's going to get it at the exact same time. They're not going to be at the same thing. But when they get that aha, when they finally get to that place where, oh my gosh, this is it, then that's it. That was the time that they were supposed to get it. It's not, it's, I've been doing, branding for 18 years. I've owned my business for 18 years. When did I say, good golly, I'm the expert? Well, you know what? I just kind of realized just a couple of years that I am an expert in what I do and how I do it and how my ideas of what a brand is and how to cultivate and make a brand that's long lasting is definitely different than a lot of people. And so that's where I was like, oh, well, I do have an expertise in something, and I do have a different way of going about it than most people. I have a different philosophy. And that is that realization. Once you realize, oh, holy cow, look at me. I've got something that is totally different than anybody else out there, but I'm seeing the results. My clients are seeing the results, and everybody is going in that direction of greatness. That's when you can say, "Oh my gosh, I have that. I've practiced." But just because I've done all that practice doesn't mean that I'm not actually still researching. The world is evolving. So I'm always researching. I'm always practicing. I'm always making sure that whatever I'm doing is up here when everybody else is playing down here.
mm,
So
mhm.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
It
that's
does.
that's my philosophy on it.
Well, it's good. It's exactly what needed to be said right now because that's what came out of your mouth, Miss
All
Nora.
righty.
I have to admit, that's one of the things I like about this show and the questions that I ask. And sometimes, like, I'm like, I don't have a question. I just got to talk. And then, what do you think about that? And sometimes that works, and sometimes I got to talk some more. It's all good. Um, okay, so as you know, and I'm thinking about how we are when we're on stage and we're fully present and we're engaged. Sometimes we're different. And I can give an example from this conference that I was at recently. Dr. Tara Trent, she and I had a great conversation. She had just gotten off the plane. I was like, I don't know who this is, but she looks really friendly. I bought her book and I went and I stood in line and I had her sign the book and we just had this great conversation. And then the next day I see her on stage and I'm like, "What? The what? This is awesome." And she was still very much herself, yet she had a different presence. And it takes courage to build that. And you can tell listening to her who her role models were on how to present to get an idea across. And where I'm going with this is there's really no right way to do this. There's our way to do this. And that's what I hear both of you saying. There's our way to do this. And the one way that we can find out, one is to do it. Does it feel good or not feel good? Are we getting our point across or not? But another way is to just watch other people and go, ooh, I wonder if I put my spin on that, how that would feel and change the way I'm able to interact and connect with others. And I know I do that. I listen to podcasts all the time. Some of them are for the actual content, and some of them are, what are they doing that I could learn from? And I do the same thing watching YouTube videos. I do this I get in front of many people in live audiences as I can for the very same reason, because it's part of my research. What are they doing? How are they doing that? And then maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll try it and I won't like it very much. And that's okay because then we get to do us best. And it means we have to take risk. It means we have to be willing to fail. It means we have to know that sometimes we're going to get on stage or in front of a group, no matter how small or large, and there is zero connection. And other times we'll get on stage and we will have the hearts and minds of everybody in the room. And so, there's so many risks associated with taking the time to mean what you say. And I would even say, going back, the story that you used, Johanna, of recognizing, oh, I said this, but it's actually came across different than what my intention was. And going back to correct that, to make that stronger connection, even many days later, makes a huge difference. So, how do you guys work with the risk and overcoming that little bit of fear of changing your mind or saying, "Hey, I wasn't quite right here. I'd like to add and change what I said." How do you guys approach that, and does it ever get comfortable is another part of the question.
Well, I there are a couple things. There's something you said early on that I wanted to
Yeah, go for it.
respond to.
Whatever
Where I
strikes your
said,
fancy.
like, you had this conversation with her off stage, and then she shows up on stage, and she's just like, "Whoa, who is that?" And I think that's just a really interesting thing about speaking. I hear that all the time because as a kid, I was super shy, super quiet, and often I still am. I'm an introvert. I'm the quiet one in the room. I can tend to kind of hang around the edges of the circle sometime. But when I get up on stage, man, you don't want to mess with me, you know? And a lot of people, I get that feedback all the time. It was like, whoa, Johanna, I had no idea you had it in you, you know? So it's something about for me, getting up on stage is permission to show all of myself. Like somehow it's like, okay, you have signed up to be here, and I have given myself permission to just really show all of myself. And 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 I've got this audience looking at me, and there's all this energy coming at me, and so in a way it's like I'm pulling up on all my inner resources to meet that energy. And
Mhm.
so I just pull more of myself forward. I pull more of myself forward to meet that energy and to make the connection, and to to own the room, to meet the room, and to really meet that vibration. So I think that, some people call that, like, oh, it's inauthentic. If you're different on stage than you are off, then it's inauthentic. But I think there's just a really different, it's like, how do I bring more of myself to the stage is the question. And yeah, I can look different. I can be different.
I like that because I did not feel any difference of personality from her, even though she had that different approach. So I'm really glad you're taking time to explain that, because I always worry I would get judged that way when when I am different on stage than not, and that you do get called inauthentic really quick these days. And it's not. It's holding a space in its own right, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people figure it out differently, and some people pull it off and some people don't. Some people do feel like, where are you up there? I can't quite feel you. I can't, I like, you look good, but you're saying smart things, but I can't quite feel you. Where are you? That happens too, where there's a gap, where there's some like disconnect.
Mhm.
So, um,
Anything you want to add, Nora?
What was the original question? Because
I
I
don't
did
know.
have something that I wanted to say on the original question.
Well, it had to do with risk and failure and things like that.
Okay, and then what if it was comfortable? I think that was
Yes.
another part of
Does
it.
it ever get comfortable?
Um, I think it doesn't ever truly get like 100% comfortable. You get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So it becomes comfortable because you already know, well, I've been here, I've done that. I know what this is. And as soon as I get on stage, or as soon as I do XYZ, then lo and behold, it's not an issue anymore. So it's getting used to something, I guess, more than that. Um, what was something about risk? What was that?
Don't even worry about it.
Okay,
You
gotcha.
had what you just said was perfect as it was.
Perfect.
Yes. So thank you for trying to address one of the things you learn when you talk to me is that there are like a bazillion things that are going to come out of me at any one point in time. And we literally go where the conversation happens to be. So when
Okay.
there's something that you really want to talk about, that's what we talk about. And that's part of what this is, because it's a discovery process. What do we need to know right now to build on this conversation, as much as it is um getting things out there for other people to use what we're saying to add to their story, to their conversation in their way to get to where they want to go. All right, I have one more question. We're already a little over, but I have to keep talking to you. I just have to. And this last one is, I want to know what makes it bold to actually mean what we say.
What does it what?
Why is it bold to actually mean what we say?
You want to start, Nora?
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm writing it down.
Okay. Why did you say why is it bold to actually mean what we say?
Yeah.
We've been there's a lot of training and conditioning and programming out there that gets laid on us from day one about how we're supposed to be as girls, how we're supposed to be as blank, 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 and that a lot of that conditioning comes in and it's easy to get confused about who I am and what I want and what my message is and what I care about and what I value. And I know for me that's been a huge piece of my healing and my growing is kind of unraveling all that conditioning that was laid on me as a girl. I was supposed to be a good girl and a good well-behaved girl, and I did everything I could to get the right answer and deliver, and and that was my job. And it's been a long journey of just like peeling away the layers of, wait a minute, what do I want and what do I believe and what do I have to say? And that's kind of a radical act. It's scary and uncomfortable and messy and confusing, and it's like and risky to keep peeling away the layers and to say, oh, here's who I am, and here's what I believe, and here's what I think, and here's the story I want to tell. And I think it can be tough to like all the weight of the oppression, the weight of the conditioning is just like, or we just be like, no, actually it's not that heavy, I'm just going to flick it off. And but I think it's contradicting a lot that's out there in the culture of who and how we're supposed to be. And it's powerful to speak your truth.
Well, it is powerful to speak your truth, I must say. But why is it bold to mean what you say? Well, it's because of connection. If you're not willing to say it, if you're not willing to do it, live it, then no one else is going to receive that. And it's that connection, that communication, that understanding that binds us, that finds all the people that we need to be, connecting to and talking to and learning from and being around as our tribe. That's being truthful, being honest, being us is the only thing that we have. It is the one thing that we have. Each one of us has a different experience in the world. Each one of us has a different, kind of being. But with our stories, with our communication, with what we're actually saying is what connects us, which binds us, because each one of us has a different story, but we all can relate, our tribe can relate to us. There are other people, there are other women, there are other men that can say, oh my gosh, I had a very similar story to yours. And now I feel comfortable in me because I have somebody that also shares this. That's strong, that's powerful. That's what the bigger thing of communicating and what we're saying and what we're meaning is all about, is really getting to that.
Thank you both for being here. Thank you, everybody, for listening or watching wherever you happen to be, either right now as we're live, later on your favorite platform like iTunes or iHeartRadio, Stitcher, whichever one you have subscribed to us from. Our full list is at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com. You will find all the program notes very shortly, sometime by the time I go to bed tonight, on voiceofboldbusiness.com/p96. You can also search the website, What We Mean, Not What We Say. You've listened to Nora, you've listened to Johanna, you have not only heard their wisdom, you've heard some personal stories about how they go about making sure they are speaking up and speaking out. So subscribe, rate our program, and make sure you connect with them. All their information is at voiceofboldbusiness.com. It's your beliefs and my beliefs that define what it means to be a leader today. It's through each of those experiences and our conversations around it. The concept of solving problems, this concept of thinking, this idea of actually getting clear about what our initiatives, our goals, and our mission actually is in the role that we're in at any point in time. It's what we use to define how we lead. So let's keep having that conversation. And remember, the impact that we make comes with the connection of what we mean with what we say.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.